Hello, the YouTube. Let's talk about this little chart that I've made here today. This is my Shtf Mett-Tc chart, all right? So if you don't know what Mett-Tc is an acronym the military uses to help think about all the constraints, all the external constraints on what you would need to do and plan and take for your mission, right? So Mett-Tc is we have the mission itself, we have enemy, terrain, troops, time. This is time between us realizing we have to do something and that something happening. Civil considerations, so civilians and other things like that. And then that is your Mett-Tc, and then I've tacked on here conclusions we can come to, and then historical examples. All right. And then on the other axis, we can see I have different possible SHTF events, if we will, listed, right? In order of most likely to least likely, right? So we have localized natural disaster, active shooter, home invasion, increased violent crime, economic or logistical issues, government collapse, tyrannical takeover, foreign invasion, widespread loss of utilities, plague outbreak. All right. So I've made this and I've filled in all the boxes in a very generalized way that would apply to anybody watching this video. But what I would encourage you to do is you make one of these yourself and you jot down in your boxes the specific things that are, what is your Mett-Tc, rather than the generalized version that I have. And that will help you come to more precise conclusions and have more precise historical examples to pull from. So the point of all this is to help you focus in on what you need to prepare for, right? What is realistically possible, what is likely, what is unlikely, and what do all those events look like, and what steps can you now take to mitigate them. And we're going to base that as much as we can off historical examples, and then fill in the gaps that we can't from historical examples with our own logical conclusions. So I'll try to go through this as rapidly as I can. All right, so we'll go axis by axis, right? So localized natural disaster. Our primary mission is to survive the storm. Then secondary would be to protect our property. And last but not least, help the community. Okay, the enemy is the storm itself, right? Which could be a lot of things. Could be fire, hurricane, tornado, flash flood, earthquakes, dam breaking, or poison spills, or factory fires, things of this nature. Terrain, right? I don't know. Where do you live? Urban, suburban, rural? Do you live in the mountains, the plains, the swamps, the deserts, the woods? Is your climate hot, cold, dry, wet? All right, these are different things you're going to have to consider to take into consideration the supplies and the tools you need. Troops, this is talking about friendlies, right? So your family, people immediately in your house, obviously, they will be there to help you or you will be responsible for them. Secondarily will be your friends and the community you have around you. Which of these people are assets? Which of these people are liabilities? Some people might be a little of both, right? What things can some people do and what things can people not do? Think about how to properly place them and what you need to take care of them. And then lastly, if you're a part of any groups, are you a part of any emergency groups, response groups, humanitarian effort groups, mutual defense aid groups, anything like that, right? Could be applicable to your friendly troops section. Time, depending on the natural disaster, we could have anywhere from no time at all to up to 1 to 3 days advanced warning that this is going on. Civil considerations, likely collapsed local infrastructure and displaced civilians, right? So after the storm event happens, we're probably going to have stuff that is not working properly, stores that are closed, power's down, clean water might be out, etc., and there could possibly be displaced civilians if their home infrastructure has been destroyed. All right, conclusions we can come to. Your primary goal should be to evacuate the danger area, expect traffic, use alternative routes, take a 4x4 vehicle if possible, be prepared to evade from truck to on foot, and seek shelter in a location other than your primary destination. i.e. some impromptu place on the side of the road, or even if you have a destination in mind, you might get rerouted and not able to get there and get stuck in a like humanitarian Red Cross shelter or something like that. Okay, so I'm not going to include all the ins and outs, but think about what things you should pack to excel in those environments and take those with you. You must answer enemy time and terrain on your own, right? So I don't know what storms you're going to have to fight. I don't know what terrain you're going to be in, and I don't know what kind of a time frame you can expect to have before that storm is upon you. Historical examples, you can look to historical natural disasters that have taken place in your region or regions that are affected by similar things, and additionally look to any industrial hazards close to you. Create your plans accordingly. All right. Next, active shooter. Your mission: protect family, help others escape, eliminate the threat, assist with law enforcement officers with information before they get there, right? Enemy: often a single, untrained individual. Terrain: typically it's urban, right? They're going to be somewhere where there's a lot of people. That's going to be an urban setting. Troops: family, friends, community. Who's an asset? Who's a liability? Who's out with you normally? Who do you go to the grocery store with? Who do you take to the movies? Who do you go to the concert with? Whatever your life is, who's around you? Who's going to help you in these situations? How can they help you? And who do you need to take care of? And in what ways do you need to take care of them? Time, probably zero time. You're going to have no advance warning that this is taking place. Civil considerations: panicked civilians responding with herd instinct means they're going to be running en masse in a unified direction. Law enforcement officers will arrive trigger happy most likely. Conclusions. First, you need to evade the kill zone and reach safety, bringing all loved ones and any civilians you can with you. If the threat prevents itself during the evasion, eliminate it. Once non-combatants are clear, you can, if you decide to, return to end the threat if you so choose. You must consider your troops and civil factors. You can look to many active shooter situations of the past and build your plan accordingly. Home invasion. Our mission is to protect our family, protect our property, and stop or detain the threat, right? Because if we allow the perpetrator to just escape, likely he's going to violate our rights or other people's rights again. Enemy, often a single untrained individual or less likely a small group of 3 to 5. If it is a small group, they are often teens. Terrain, it is your home. Troops, your family and friends. Also, you could have some community aspect if your neighbors are really good neighbors. All right, again, who is assets, who is liabilities, how can they help you, how do you need to take care of them? Time, you will not have any advance warning. Civil considerations, who's inside your house? Wife, children? Is this an apartment complex where you have thin walls and people living all around you in every direction, up and down? Are your neighbors super close to you, right? Talking about deconflicting fires and selecting what weapon we're going to use in these things. It's all stuff to consider in the civilian considerations. All right, our goal is to protect our family. Often holding a strong point rather than doing a full home clear is best. You must consider your troops and civil factors along with the layout of your own home. Historic examples. You can find historic accounts of home invasions and look into the home invasion stats of your local area to help develop a plan. All right, moving into the stuff that theoretically could happen and isn't actually happening already. Here in the yellow, we have increased violent crime. So our mission would be to participate in daily life while being responsible for our personal defense unassisted. The enemy would be organized gang activity along with chaotic smash and grab or prank criminals. Terrain could be urban, could be suburban, could be rural. Typically it's going to be urban or suburban. This likely won't be an issue in the rural areas unless things get really bad, and then we'll be dealing with organized crime looking to like hold people hostage or seize land, stuff like that, South Africa status. But so just depends. Troops, again, friends, family, community. Who's an asset? Who's a liability? Time. You will have unlimited time to plan prep and adjust, right? This likely isn't going to be an event that just happens overnight. It will be a gradual increase. And though you don't know at what time you'll have to defend yourself, you will have an unlimited amount of time to think about it and say, okay, I'm going to start doing this, or I'm going to start doing that. The crime stats are getting worse. So a lot of time to prep and plan theoretically. Civil considerations. Law enforcement is likely to not investigate criminal activities, but they will investigate individuals that divulge information willingly. So act accordingly. All right. And conclusion, reducing our exposure, reinforcing our ability to respond. You must consider your terrain, troops, and civil factors. If not in a local community or group, it's likely time to make one. All right. Historic examples. We can look to places like Brazil or Mexico for examples of what living in constant organized and violent crime would be like and how those individuals conduct themselves. Okay. Economic or logistic issues, right? Most recently, COVID-19 created a ton of logistical issues. So mission, be self-sufficient in necessities, offer a skill or a good or a trade to the greater community so that you can form an economy outside of the economy should we have complete breakdown, and seek to protect your property. All right. The enemy is lack of ability to source necessities from normal locations or means, right? I.e., we can't find toilet paper anymore, for example. Terrain, I have no idea. Could be urban, suburban, rural, mountains, plains, swamp, desert, woods, hot, cold, dry, wet. You have to answer those questions yourself. Troops, again, friends, family, local community. Are they assets? Are they liabilities? Are you involved in any groups? Would that be beneficial in these scenarios? There may be limited or no notice before a specific item is hard to find. Civil considerations. Have-nots will be resentful of the haves if things get really bad. And this was even true in COVID, right? If you had a mountain of Charmin in your apartment, probably wasn't a smart idea to take a bunch of pictures of it and post it on social media. All right. Conclusions. Having a good stock of basics like spices, hardware, pens and paper, medicine, materials that are a necessity to your business can help you have a runway in an event of an overnight logistical issue. By runway, as I mean, if we'll just stay on the toilet paper. It could be anything, but for example, if all of a sudden there's no more toilet paper in the stores, but you're never going to have a lifetime supply of toilet paper. But if you have a week of toilet paper, if you have a month of toilet paper, if you have 6 months of toilet paper, a year of toilet paper on hand, not that I would advocate actually having a year of toilet paper, but you get my point. If food becomes hard to find, but you have a year of rice and beans stored, well, that means you have 1 year's time to figure out how the fuck you're going to start getting more food. Whether that's gardening, hunting, trading, you need to move out of your location to somewhere else, whatever the case is, you're never going to stock up enough stuff to have an unlimited supply. But if you give yourself what I like to call a runway, then it gives you an opportunity to take count of what the situation is without having an immediate emergency need, and gives you time to form a logical plan and execute it properly. All right. Historic examples. As I've been saying, COVID-19 gave us a taste of what logistical issues can do. Imagine if it was increasingly more critical or daily items that were missing, right? What if it was hard to get clean water? What if it was impossible to find meat, chicken or beef or pork? Anyways, all right, so moving on to the orange, increasingly more fantastical ideas of SHTF, but hey, you never know, kids. So we have government collapse, right? The federal government, state government, they just go away for whatever reason. We default on the dollar, so we have some economic logistical issues, and then the government also collapses, whatever the case is, right? So our mission is going to be organize our community to fill the role of government in the local area, starting with security and defense. Our enemy is likely near-peer threats, small groups looking for land and resources that we are occupying. Terrain, you have to answer this on your own. Urban, suburban, rural, mountains, plains, swamp, desert, woods. Hot, cold, dry, wet. Troops, family, friends, community, assets, liabilities. What groups are you a part of? Any question mark. Time. These things happen slowly at first and then all of a sudden overnight. I would argue, in my own paranoid mind, we are already in the slowly at first phase. We are spending more money on interest payments on national debt than we are national defense. I say again, America is spending more money servicing the national debt interest than it is on its national defense. So how long can we do that? At what point are we what do we do when 100% of the budget goes to the interest? Just all the money we tax and all the money we can print only goes to the interest payment. Then what happens? Anyways, I don't know. I'm just saying. All right, so where are we at? Government collapse. Okay, slowly at first and then all of a sudden, right? So it'll be like a weird thing everybody's talking about. And then things will be kind of really like, what? Is that really happening? I don't know if that's really happening for like a week or two. And then they'll just literally be like, the dollar doesn't matter. The courthouse is empty. There are no more cops. The end. If it ever goes down that way. All right, civil considerations. Many civilians will be in desperation with no government, monetary assistance, or security. Conclusion. In the power vacuum, new players will take over. At first, small-time groups will seize local power, but eventually larger centers of power will begin to flex. Establishing yourself as a useful and knowledgeable individual early on will be good. Consider your terrain and troop factors. Historic examples. We can look to historic recent examples like Venezuela, South Africa, and the USSR for what modern societies do in post-government reality. All right. Tyrannical takeover and foreign invasion. These are very similar. The moral of the story is there's a uniformed military and we don't like them. So, the goal is to restore freedom and individual liberties and or get the foreign invaders to leave. The enemy is the uniformed military doing non-freedom occupations. The terrain, I have no idea. You have to answer that question yourself. Your troops, again, you have to answer that yourself. Time. For tyrannical takeover, just like government collapse, it's slowly at first, then all of a sudden overnight. Foreign, at first there's troops in D.C., and then there's troops in every major city, but hey, there's a lot of crime. And then there's troops in your city, even though it's not a major city. And then there's just troops everywhere. The cops are now troops. Foreign invasion will likely be no advanced warning. All right. Civil considerations. Some civilians will not support a resistance or even be loyal to the government authority, okay, in a tyrannical takeover. Some people will just say, but they are the government. They said so. They said it's bad to think. Turn your brain off. That's what the government said. And the government is good, so what they say is good. Okay? It is what it is, friends. In a foreign invasion, civilians will likely oppose the invaders in spirit at least. All right, so a little bit, those are opposites, right? Probably going to have a bunch of Tories in a tyrannical takeover, but it's pretty easy to convince everybody that we don't want to be ruled by the CCP. All right. Conclusions. Likely, and this is in tyrannical takeover, likely a war of propaganda and guerrilla tactics will be best. Consider your terrain and troop situations. And for foreign invasion, likely some mix of militias going overt and guerrilla resistance, primarily guerrilla resistance, right? Very similar to the previous mentioned tyrannical takeover, you will have to consider every factor of your individual situation. All right. We can look to examples for tyrannical takeover, like the IRA, the organized mobs in America, the NVA, and the Taliban for examples of how to fight a tyrannical takeover government. And historical examples of foreign invasion would be wide-ranging and having to only pull what's useful from the War of 1812, Maxog v. Rhodesian Bush Wars, Ukrainian War, and even stuff like the Taliban and the NVA again. So, point being, small group fight big group. The question is, how much citizen and logistical support do we have from big spindas? All right. Now, in full law, probably never going to actually happen in for realsies land. We have widespread loss of utilities, right? So whatever the reason, it's a nuke, it's a solar flare, it's alien invasion, zombie outbreak, whatever, it doesn't matter. The point is, when you flip the light switch, the lights don't come on. All right. So our mission is to return to sustainment living and or build localized utility systems. In other words, you have to survive. So either we're going to go back to living like bush people, or at least how they did before they had electricity, right? Or we need to rebuild localized, non-massive grid infrastructure, so local grid infrastructure. How do we facilitate power and water for our community, and what size is our community? Is that a subdivision? Is it a rural county? Is it a city block? I don't know. All right. Enemy. Death from lack of basic necessities. That is our enemy. And it will be everywhere. Terrain. You have to answer that yourself, friends. Troops. You have to answer that yourself, friends. Likely no advanced warning on time. We don't know when the solar flare is going to take us out. It's just going to happen one day. Civil considerations. Desperate people will do desperate things. And then conclusions. It's getting pretty late, friends, but we'll go ahead and gut it out here. Conclusions. If you live in a highly urban area, you will likely be forced to evacuate. Everyone else will likely be best to form a community local and return to sustainment living, while also taking responsibility for their own security. Skills and tools will be more valuable than guns and tactics, right? So knowing how to build something and knowing what plants to eat and how to take care of goats will be way more important than having the coolest night force optic that you could ever have and NVGs and thermals and all that stuff. Okay. Historic examples. As far as I'm aware, there is no historic example of a modern, especially postmodern society losing utilities for an extended period of time. But we can look to how people lived before there were utilities for an idea, a guide stone of where we need to go. Plague outbreak. What if COVID was for realsies? I just realized I said COVID like 30 times, and so if they ever freak out, this video is going to get taken down. Whatever. All right, flying under the radar. Mission. Plague outbreak mission. Defend from outside contamination and be self-sufficient. The enemy is the illness. Your terrain, I have no idea. Your troops, I have no idea. Likely time, it will likely be slowly at first, then all of a sudden, just like COVID was, right? I know that it wasn't actually like life-threatening, but for like months you heard like, oh, something weird happening, and then oh, something happened in China, and then oh, I think maybe it's here in America, and then it was like 3 weeks later we're locked down for a year or whatever. So slowly at first, and then all of a sudden. That's how it goes, friends. That's how it goes, friends. Conclusion. Having the ability to isolate from the outside world and decontaminate what few supplies you bring in will be crucial to survive an actual pandemic outbreak. You must consider all factors, as there are too many variables at play. Historical examples, we can look to the Spanish flu. COVID-19 is a more modern example of government reactions. And modern small localized outbreaks in Africa can lend some useful knowledge as well. All right, everybody. So the idea is you can build this yourself. If I have something up here on the possible threat side that you think is just never going to happen, or your favorite version of the end of the world isn't up here, throw it up there yourself. Go through your Mett-Tc, mission, enemy, terrain, troops, time, civilian considerations. Fill it in detail for what it actually looks like for you. What is your terrain? What is your troops? What are your civilian considerations? What would your mission be? Okay. And then you can come to, based off all of that, find yourself more specific and accurate historic examples, read up on those, and then based on all of your specific Mett-Tc considerations and the historic examples that you've read up on, formulate your own logical conclusions. And then you don't have to worry about how many cell phones you need to have in a Faraday bag, and how many gallons of water you have to be able to purify, and how many specialty rifles you have to build, because you'll have a realistic idea of what's most likely to least likely to happen, and what steps would be realistic for you to take in your life, where you live with your people. Wonderful. Have a great time, friends. See you on the next one.